Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're doing exactly what our name suggests, diving deep into the official record of Congress for Tuesday, October 14th, 2025.
And it was quite a day. You had this really stark contrast, didn't you? The House was practically silent while the Senate was, let's just say, full of drama.
High drama indeed. We saw a major political failure, a moment of actually pretty profound bipartisan relief on another front, and some really significant policy reversals happening almost under the radar.
Exactly. So our goal here is to give you that shortcut,
Right.
cut through all the dense legislative language and give you a clear, balanced picture of what actually happened. We're talking about the government shutdown hitting the 2-week mark.
Oof.
Yeah. And also this pretty explosive controversy brewing over a huge international bailout.
Okay, let's set that scene first, because the timing tells you everything. The House of Representatives met at 2 p.m.
Right.
and adjourned at 2 p.m.
2 minutes.
2 minutes flat. Meanwhile, the Senate kicks off at 3 p.m., gearing up for some really high-stakes action. Tells you where the focus was.
Absolutely. All eyes on the Senate.
All right, so let's dive straight into the biggest issue. Day 14 of the government shutdown. This dominated the Senate floor.
It really did. First order of business basically was this crucial vote on H.R. 5371. That's the Continuing Appropriations Act, the bill meant to reopen the government.
NCR, yeah. And what happened?
Well, it failed. They took a vote on cloture. That's the procedural step you need to end the debate and actually vote on the bill itself.
Need 60 votes, right? 3/5.
Exactly. And it only got 49 yeas to 45 nays. So no cloture. The bill stalled and the government stayed shut.
49 to 45. I mean, that's not miles away, but it's definitely short of the 60 needed. And what's fascinating is how both sides immediately seized on that failure.
Well, completely. The narratives just diverged instantly.
So what were the Republicans saying?
Well, leadership figures like Senator Barrasso, Senator Thune, they were very clear this is the Schumer shutdown, full stop.
Okay.
Their argument was, look, we put forward a clean, nonpartisan CR, just keep the government open, but the Democrats blocked it. They said Democrats were holding funding hostage.
Hostage for what, though? What was the demand?
Healthcare, specifically demanding expensive changes to healthcare policy. That was the Republican take, that Democrats were more worried about appeasing their, quote, far left base than funding the government.
Okay, but let's pause on that healthcare link, because that seems critical.
Right.
Why are Democrats tying government funding to the Affordable Care Act?
Right. Well, from the Democratic perspective, led by Senator Schumer, this is the Trump shutdown.
Right.
But their big push was, yes, about healthcare. They called it the healthcare premium crisis.
Okay.
The argument is that millions of Americans are facing huge ACA premium hikes right now, just as open enrollment is about to start. So they're saying we need a serious negotiation now to fix this before people get hit with massive bills.
So they see the CR, this must-pass funding bill, as their only real leverage point to force that negotiation.
That's the crux of it, yeah. They kept pointing out that the Republican CR couldn't pass the Senate anyway, so why not negotiate something that can pass and addresses this looming crisis?
And while all this finger-pointing is happening upstairs, the record makes it pretty clear there's real pain happening downstairs, right? For everyday people.
Oh, absolutely. It's not theoretical. They talked about federal workers, law enforcement, missing paychecks, real money out of pockets. There were mentions of reports, I think, from the Military Times about military families actually needing food assistance because of the shutdown uncertainty.
Wow.
Yeah. And concerns about food stamp funding running low, plus warnings from the Wall Street Journal about air travel delays because of, TSA and air traffic controller shortages.
And you can see Congress reacting to that directly, even if the main logjam isn't breaking.
Definitely. You saw these bills pop up. H.R. 5755, for example. The idea there was basically, hey, if Congress doesn't pass a budget by October 1st, Congress doesn't get paid.
Ah, a classic, right?
And then you had H.R. 5756 and 5757, which were specifically trying to get emergency funding out for things like LIHEAP, the Home Energy Assistance Program, and tribal programs, trying to patch the holes during the shutdown.
So confirmation that the impacts are real, even if the leaders are still stuck?
Exactly. The pressure is building.
Okay, let's switch gears a bit. Away from the shutdown fight, October 14th also had some major global dimensions. One brought kind of a surprising moment of unity.
Yeah, it really did. The day actually started on a much more positive note, with the Senate celebrating what they called wonderful news from the Middle East.
This was about the hostages in Gaza.
That's right. The release of the last 20 living hostages who had been held for, over 2 years since the October 7th attacks.
That is incredible news. Really something.
Yeah, and you saw Senators Grassley and Thune specifically crediting President Trump's persistent and skilled leadership in getting that deal done. A rare moment of bipartisan praise for the White House on something so sensitive.
Were there details mentioned about the deal itself?
Some broad strokes: a ceasefire, Israeli forces withdrawing from Gaza, and critically, a condition that Hamas would not be allowed to resume control there. But, Senator Schumer also made a point of saying the work isn't totally finished. He specifically mentioned needing to recover the remains of hostages who didn't survive, naming two of his constituents, Omer Nutra and Ite Chen. So relief, but still somber work ahead.
Got it. Okay, so that goodwill lasted.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
How long? Because then things got contentious again pretty quickly, right?
Yeah, about as long as it took for the next topic to hit the floor. This sudden controversy over Argentina.
Ah, the bailout. Okay, this sounds complicated. What's the story here?
Well, suddenly there's this huge debate about the Treasury Department apparently approving a massive $20 billion package for Argentina.
$20 billion. Where's that coming from?
From something called the Exchange Stabilization Fund, the ESF. Now, technically, that fund is supposed to be for stabilizing currency markets, dealing with exchange rates.
Okay.
But the accusation led by Senator Schumer and Senator Warren was that the Trump administration was essentially using this fund as a backdoor bailout for Argentina's government, specifically to help the, quote, Mangier-friendly President Javier Milei right before his election.
Wow. Okay. So a political motive alleged there, and they tied this back to the shutdown fight.
Directly. Schumer's argument was basically, how can the administration say there's no money to lower healthcare premiums for Americans facing a crisis when they can suddenly find $20 billion to send to Argentina?
That's a potent argument during a shutdown.
And they layered on the domestic impact, too, calling it a slap in the face to American farmers who are struggling with trade issues, while Argentina is apparently using this financial lifeline to cut new soybean deals with China, essentially helping a competitor.
Oof. Okay, so what was the counter-argument? Why would the U.S. send $20 billion to Argentina?
The pushback came from Senator Scott of South Carolina. He argued against the bill. Warren introduced S. 2965, the No Argentina Bailout Act.
Right.
His point was that blocking the Treasury from using the ESF like this would hurt a really important ally. Argentina's the third largest economy in Latin America, he noted, and we shouldn't undermine our ability to support them.
So a clash between domestic priorities and foreign policy strategy. Did that bill go anywhere?
Not immediately. Senator Warren tried to get it passed quickly using unanimous consent, basically, asking if anyone objects.
Yeah.
And Senator Scott immediately objected. So blocked. It just showed, this is a serious fight, not something that's going away quickly.
Okay, so beyond the big shutdown battle and the Argentina flare-up, there were other, maybe quieter, but still really significant things happening, particularly around environmental policy.
Yeah, this is where you see how these less noticed procedural tools can have huge impacts. The Senate passed 3 resolutions under something called the Congressional Review Act, HA Res 104, 105, and 106.
The CRA. Okay, refresh our memory. What does that do?
It's a way for Congress to basically hit delete on regulations finalized by federal agencies within a certain time frame. If they pass a CRA resolution disapproving a rule, it's not only gone, but the agency often can't issue a similar rule again.
Okay, so it's powerful. What rules got deleted here?
These were targeting major resource management plans, or RMPs, put in place by the Bureau of Land Management, the BLM, during the previous Biden administration. They covered huge areas in Montana, specifically the Miles City Plan, North Dakota, and the central Yukon region of Alaska.
And what did those Biden-era plans do?
They generally put more emphasis on conservation, restricting certain resource uses, things like prohibiting coal leasing on millions of acres, limiting mineral development in sensitive areas, basically putting up environmental guardrails.
Okay, so the CRA resolutions, they took down those guardrails.
Exactly. Passing these resolutions means those Biden-era plans are null and void. And the law then requires the BLM to revert back to the older management plans that were in place before.
And those older plans presumably allowed more resource extraction.
That's the key. Those older plans emphasize multiple use and sustained yield, which is, the traditional BLM language that allows for more drilling, mining, grazing, logging, etc.
So basically a quiet but massive shift back towards resource development on millions of acres of federal land done through these procedural votes.
A really significant policy change, yeah. Happened without much fanfare compared to the shutdown fight, but the long-term impact could be huge for energy, mining, and conservation in those states.
Yeah, we also saw some movement in House committees setting up future debates.
Right. Over in the House Oversight Committee, they reported out a couple of notable bills. One was H.R. 5242, which aims to repeal two criminal justice reform laws passed previously in D.C., the Second Chance Act and the Incarceration Reduction Act.
Okay, rolling back reforms. What else?
And also H.R. 5163, which is a bill that would ban camping on public property here in D.C., addressing the homelessness issue, but through prohibition, so setting up potential floor votes on those.
And any signs of agency oversight?
Just a procedural note, but potentially significant. Three major final rules from the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, the CFPB, were officially referred to the House Financial Services Committee.
Which means?
It signals that those specific CFPB rules are now formally on the committee's radar for review, potentially hearings, and maybe even legislative challenges down the road. Increased scrutiny on the financial regulators.
So after all that back and forth, the failed votes, the new controversies, where does that leave things heading into Wednesday, October 15th? Still stuck.
Looks like more drama is definitely on the schedule. The Senate has teed up another crucial vote for Wednesday afternoon around 2:15 p.m.
On what?
It's a vote on the motion to reconsider the vote on H.R. 5371.
Ah, the CR. The bill that failed to get cloture. So they're trying again.
Essentially, yes. It keeps the shutdown fight front and center. So that's definitely not over. And after that, the record indicates they might move to consider the big Department of Defense appropriations bill, H.R. 4016.
Okay, so potentially some movement on funding specific departments, even if the overall CR is stuck.
Potentially. It all depends on that reconsideration vote first.
All right. So for you listening, we threw out a lot of bill numbers there. H.R. 5371 for the continuing resolution, H.R. 57755 on congressional pay, S 2965 for the Argentina bailout issue.
And the CRA resolutions, HA Res 104 through 106.
Right. We really encourage you, if any of this caught your interest, use a resource like congress.gov. You can plug in those numbers and track these specific pieces of legislation yourself. See where they go next.
It's honestly the best way to follow how the things we discussed, paychecks, healthcare, environmental rules, foreign aid, are actually being decided.
Definitely. And maybe one final thought to leave you with as we wrap up this deep dive. Think about the contrast on display just on this one day, October 14th. It's day 14 of a government shutdown. Federal workers aren't getting paid. Military families are reportedly needing food aid. And on that same day, Congress spends serious time debating a $20 billion package for Argentina, celebrating a complex international hostage deal, and quietly using an obscure procedure to potentially open up millions of acres to resource extraction.
It's quite the mix.
It really is. So the question to chew on is, what does that juxtaposition tell you about where Congress's real priorities and maybe its attention span truly lie, especially when facing a crisis right here at home?
Something to think about.